The hunt begins. The conference hall of the Kryn sovereignty gleamed with polished obsidian walls and cascading light panels that reflected the self-assured expressions of the assembled officials. High Commissioner Thalen Vosk stood at the central podium, his scaled hands resting on the surface as he addressed the gathered representatives from across Kryn space. His species had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 3 centuries, and he wore that authority like a second skin. "Esteemed colleagues," Voss began, his voice resonating through the chamber with practiced confidence. "Today marks a historic moment for our sovereignty. After months of deliberation, the Council has unanimously approved the Population Control Directive. This legislation addresses the growing concern of unregulated refugee populations entering our territories." The holographic displays around the room flickered to life, showing streams of data and population charts. Voss gestured toward them with a sweep of his arm. "The Velothi situation has become untenable. Their world is dying, yes, but we cannot allow sentiment to override practical governance. These refugees consume resources, strain our infrastructure, and offer nothing in return. They exist in legal limbo, citizens of nowhere, protected by no treaty." One of the junior officials, a younger Kryn named Cedrus, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "High Commissioner, the Galactic Council may view this as controversial. The Velothi are fleeing environmental collapse. Surely there are humanitarian considerations." Vosk's eyes narrowed slightly, though his smile remained fixed. "The Galactic Council has made its position clear through its silence. They will issue statements, perhaps express concern, but they will take no action. We have ensured this through appropriate diplomatic channels. As for humanitarian considerations, we are not proposing extermination. We are proposing managed reduction through recreational opportunities for our elite classes." The room fell silent. Cedrus felt his throat tighten, but he said nothing more. Around him, other officials nodded slowly, some with genuine agreement, others with the careful neutrality of those who knew better than to oppose Voss publicly. "The hunts will be regulated, broadcasted, and profitable," Voss continued. "Our noble families will pay handsomely for the privilege. The revenue will offset the cost these refugees have imposed upon us. It is, in essence, a solution that transforms a burden into an asset." Far from the gleaming halls of Kryn power, in the overcrowded refugee camps on the industrial moon of Tarik 9, the Velothi waited. They were a delicate species, their skin bearing iridescent patterns that shifted with emotion and environmental conditions. Once, these patterns have been a source of pride, a living canvas that told stories and expressed feelings words could not capture. Now, they were a liability, making the Velothi easy to track and impossible to hide. Sarah crouched in the corner of a makeshift shelter constructed from salvaged materials and torn fabric. At 17 cycles old, she had already seen her homeworld's oceans boil away, watched her parents die in the evacuation riots, and carried her younger brother Miko across 3 star systems in search of safety. Miko was only 8, his patterns still bright with the innocence of youth despite everything they had endured. "Sarah," Miko whispered, pressing close to her side. "The guards are gathering people outside. They say there is an announcement." Sarah's patterns flickered with anxiety, blues and grays swirling across her arms. She forced them to stillness, an act that had become second nature. "Stay close to me," she said softly. "Whatever happens, we stay together." They emerged from their shelter to find hundreds of Velothi being herded into the central clearing. Kryn guards stood at the perimeter, weapons held casually but unmistakably ready. A large holographic projector hummed to life, and Vosk's image appeared, massive and imposing. "Velothi refugees," the projection announced. "Your status has been clarified under the new Population Control Directive. You are hereby classified as unallocated biological resources. Selected individuals will be relocated to designated zones for processing. Compliance is mandatory. Resistance will be met with immediate termination." Murmurs of confusion and fear rippled through the crowd. Sarah pulled Miko closer, her mind racing. Processing. Dizinetedzon. The words were sanitized, but their meaning was becoming horrifyingly clear. Those whose identification numbers are called will board the transports within the hour, Vosk's image continued. A list began scrolling across the projection, numbers flickering past too quickly to read. This is a legal action under sovereignty law. You have no recourse, no appeals, no alternatives. The transports arrived as promised, sleek vessels that looked more like cargo haulers and passenger craft. Sarah watched as families were separated. Children pulled from parents, elderly Velothi stumbling as they were shoved toward the ramps. Her identification number had not been called. Neither had Miko's, but she knew it was only a matter of time. Halfway across the galaxy, in a monitoring station hidden within an asteroid field, Captain Elena Reeves sat in front of an array of screens displaying intercepted communications from Kryn space. She was a veteran of humanity's expansion era, a woman who had seen enough of the galaxy to know that progress and morality rarely walked the same path. Her hair was pulled back in a practical bun, her uniform bearing the insignia of a human intelligence network, an organization that operated in the shadows of official diplomacy. "Captain, you need to see this," said Lieutenant James Park, one of her communications specialists. He transferred a feed to her main screen. Elena watched as the first hunt unfolded in real time. The forest moon of Draken 7 had been converted into what the Kryn were calling a recreational preserve. Velothi refugees, released into the wilderness with no supplies and no hope, ran desperately through dense vegetation, while Kryn hunters pursued them in hovering vehicles. The footage was being broadcast across multiple channels, complete with commentary and betting odds. Elena felt her jaw tighten as she watched a young Velothi girl, no older than 10, stumble over a root and fall. The hunter's vehicle swooped down, and the camera zoomed in on the child's terrified face before the feed cut to a commercial advertisement for hunting equipment. "How many channels is this on?" Elena asked, her voice carefully controlled. 47 major networks in Kryn space," Park replied, "and it is spreading. Some independent broadcasters in neutral zones are picking it up too. They are treating it like entertainment." Elena stood, pacing to the viewport where the cold void of space stretched endlessly. "Give me a direct line to Admiral Hutchinson. Bypass normal protocols. Just go straight to the top." "Captain, you know what the official position will be," Park said carefully. "The Kryn sovereignty is autonomous. The Galactic Council has not issued any condemnation. Officially, humanity cannot intervene in internal affairs of sovereign nations." "Then we will not do this officially," Elena said, turning back to face her team. "Give me everything. Names, locations, financial records, ship movements. I want to know everyone involved in this obscenity, from Vosk down to the technicians maintaining the broadcast equipment." "And then what?" Park asked. Elena's expression hardened. "Then we make them wish they had never thought hunting children was acceptable." The message reached Admiral Richard Hutchinson within the hour. He was a man who had spent 40 years in military service, rising through ranks during humanity's most difficult expansion conflicts. He understood the delicate balance of galactic politics, the web of treaties and mutual dependencies that kept hundreds of species from descending into chaos. He also understood that some lines, once crossed, demanded a response regardless of political convenience. He convened an emergency meeting in a secure chamber deep within the orbital station Meridian 5. Around the table sat representatives from military intelligence, diplomatic corps, and a handful of civilians whose expertise in less legal matters made them invaluable for operations the government could never officially acknowledge. Among them was Marcus Chun, a man whose official record stated he had retired from military service 5 years ago to pursue private security consulting. His actual activities involved coordinating resistance movements, facilitating weapons transfers to insurgents fighting oppressive regimes, and occasionally arranging for inconvenient people to disappear. He was exactly the kind of asset humanity needed for situations where official channels failed. "Gentlemen, ladies," Hutchinson began, "I am sure you have all seen reports from Kryn space. I will be direct. The Galactic Council will do nothing. They never do when profits are involved. Half the council members have trade agreements with the Kryn they do not want to jeopardize. The other half lack the spine to stand on principle. So we're going to war," asked Commander Sarah Williams from Tactical Operations. "No," Hutchinson said. "We are going to do something more effective. Marcus, This is your area of expertise. What options do we have outside conventional military response? Marcus leaned forward, his fingers steepled in front of him. The Kryn have made a fundamental miscalculation. They have built their entire operation around profit and entertainment. That means there is infrastructure, financial flows, and most importantly, people who are vulnerable to pressure. We cannot invade Kryn space without triggering a galactic incident, but we can make participating in these hunts exponentially more expensive and dangerous than any profit they might gain. You are talking about bounties, Elena said, having joined the meeting via secure holographic link. Exactly, Marcus confirmed. The shadow market operates throughout this region. It is where governments hire mercenaries when they want plausible deniability, where corporations arrange industrial espionage, where anyone with enough credits can make almost anything happen. If we flood that market with contracts targeting hunt organizers, participants, and enablers, we change the calculus entirely. That is assassination, William said flatly. That is justice, Elena countered. They made this legal. They removed these refugees from any protection under law. We are simply playing by the rules they established. If hunting refugees is legal recreational activity, then hunting the hunters becomes a legitimate business opportunity. Admiral Hutchinson studied the faces around the table. This cannot trace back to official government channels. If it does, we give the Kryn exactly what they need to paint themselves as victims of human aggression. This has to look like independent action, grassroots response from outraged citizens and opportunistic mercenaries. It will look that way because that is what it will be, Marcus said. I can set up the initial framework, but once the bounties go live, anyone can contribute funds. Anyone can claim contracts. It becomes self-sustaining. The more successful it is, the more people will want to participate. What about the refugees themselves? Elena asked. Bounties and market manipulation will not save the ones already in camps or scheduled for hunts. That is phase 2, Marcus said. While the bounties create chaos in their operational structure, we run extraction operations. Small teams, covert insertions, getting refugees out and relocating them to human colonies willing to accept them. It will not save everyone, but will save some. Hutchinson nodded slowly. Then we proceed. Marcus, you have operational authority. Elena, provide all intelligence support he needs. Williams, coordinate with our deep space assets in case emergency extraction requires military resources. And everyone remember, if this becomes public, we know nothing about it. Is that clear? The agreement was unanimous. Back on Tarak, 9. Sarah lay awake in the darkness, listening to Miko's steady breathing beside her. Through the thin walls of their shelter, she could hear other Velothi whispering anxiously. Word had spread about the transports, about the hunts. Everyone knew what was coming. It was only a question of when. Sarah's patterns glowed faintly in the darkness, cycling through colors she could not control while she slept. She thought about her parents, about their homeworld, about all the promises that had been broken. The Galactic Council had promised aid. The refugee treaties had promised protection. Every promise had dissolved like morning mist when confronted with political inconvenience. She wondered if anyone in the vast galaxy cared what happened to Velothi. She wondered if her brother would live to see his next birthday. She wondered if there was any power in existence that would stand against the Kryn sovereignty's legal cruelty. In the depths of space, in hidden facilities and secure channels, humans were already answering that question. They were preparing to demonstrate that some actions, legal or not, carried consequences that transcended law. The hunters were about to discover they were no longer the apex predators in this equation. The hunt had begun, but so had the reckoning, the price of cruelty. Marcus Chun sat in a dimly lit office buried 3 levels beneath the surface of New Horizon Station, a human outpost on the edge of neutral space. The room was sparse, containing only a desk, a few chairs, and a sophisticated array of communication equipment that looked far too advanced for such humble surroundings. Across from him sat a figure whose face was concealed behind a privacy field, their voice modulated to prevent identification. "You understand the risks," the figure said. "Once this goes live on the shadow market, there is no controlling it. Anyone with credits can add to the bounties. Anyone with skills can attempt to claim them. That is precisely the point, Marcus replied. We need this to look organic, not orchestrated. The Kryn need to believe they are facing spontaneous galactic outrage, not a coordinated human operation. The figure leaned forward slightly. I can provide access to the shadow market's primary nodes. I can ensure your initial contracts are featured prominently. But I want something in return. Name it. Safe passage for Velothi refugees through the Kepler corridor. No questions asked, no documentation required. My ships move through there regularly. We could carry refugees as easily as cargo. Marcus studied the obscured figure. Smugglers and information brokers occupied a necessary space in galactic society, operating in the gray zones where law and necessity intersected. Agreed. You will have protection through human-controlled space. Anyone interferes with your refugee transports, they answer to us. Then we have a deal. The figure slid a data chip across the desk. Everything you need is there. Access codes, security protocols, recommended contract structures. The shadow market responds to one thing above all else: profit. Make your bounties lucrative enough, and you will have every mercenary in the sector competing to claim them. After the figure departed, Marcus inserted the chip into a secure terminal. Lines of code cascaded across the screen, revealing the hidden architecture of the galaxy's most notorious marketplace. Here, in the digital shadows, governments and criminals operated side by side, their transactions indistinguishable from one another. It was perfect for what humanity needed to accomplish. He began drafting the first contracts. Each one was carefully worded to emphasize capture over killing, evidence over elimination. The goal was not simply revenge, but exposure, documentation, proof that could be presented to a galactic community that preferred to look away. High Commissioner Thalen Vosk, his contract read, wanted for crimes against sentient beings. Bounty: 50 million credits for live capture with documented confession. 25 million for verified evidence of criminal activity. Bonus: 10 million for recovery of financial records proving systematic exploitation. Marcus continued down his list. Hunt masters, transport coordinators, broadcast executives, weapon suppliers, facility administrators. Every person who made the hunts possible received a price on their head. He structured the payments through layered accounts that would take even the best forensic accountants months to trace. And by then, the damage would be done. Operation Reckoning is live. Marcus set into a secure comm link. Phase 1 initiating now. Across the galaxy, in 100 different locations, mercenaries and bounty hunters logged into the shadow market for their routine check of available contracts. What they found made them pause and reconsider their evening plans. On the orbital platform Dante's Reach, a mercenary crew known as the Crimson Lance gathered around their ship's holographic display. Their captain, a scarred veteran named Kira Voss, whistled low as she reviewed the Kryn contracts. 50 million for one target? Her second-in-command asked. That is more than we have made in the last 5 years combined. It is also incredibly dangerous, Kira said, but her eyes were calculating. The Kryn sovereignty will protect these people. This is not like taking down some frontier warlord. This is going after the elite of an established power. The contract specifies capture, not kill, another crew member noted. They want evidence. Someone is building a case, not just seeking revenge. Kira expanded the contract details, reading through the supplementary information. Images of Velothi children running through forests, terrified families being separated, the casual cruelty of hunters treating sentient beings as game animals. Her jaw tightened. She had seen atrocities before, participated in morally questionable operations when the pay was right, but there were still lines even she would not cross. We take it, she decided. Not for the money, though that will be nice. We take it because if we don't, I will not be able to look at myself in a mirror. Similar conversations were happening across mercenary networks. Some were motivated by profit, others by principle, many by a combination of both. Within 48 hours, more than 300 independent contractors had flagged Kryn-related targets as active pursuits. The shadow market's algorithms noticed the surge in activity and automatically promoted the contracts to premium visibility. This triggered a cascade effect as more users logged in, saw the featured bounties, and decided to participate. Within a week, the total pledged bounty amount exceeded 2 billion credits, contributed by thousands of anonymous donors from dozens of species. The Kryn sovereignty noticed. High Commissioner Vosk stood in his private office, staring at a security briefing that had just been marked urgent. 3 hunt organizers had disappeared in the last 72 hours. One had been found bound and unconscious outside a Galactic Council administrative building with a data chip containing his complete financial records attached to his chest. Another had sent a panicked message claiming mercenaries had breached his compound before communications went dark. The third had simply vanished, his estate showing signs of professional extraction. How is this possible? Voss demanded of his security chief, a grizzled Kryn named Torek. We have the best private security in the sector. The contracts are coming from the shadow market, Torek explained. It is decentralized, impossible to shut down. And the bounties are massive, Commissioner. We are not dealing with random criminals. We are facing coordinated action by professional mercenaries who see this as both profitable and morally justified. Morally justified? Vosk's scales ripple with anger. We are operating within our legal framework. The Galactic Council has raised no objections. The humans have, Torek said quietly, intelligence suggests they are behind the initial funding. They have turned this into a cause. Every species that has ever felt threatened by larger powers is watching to see if resistance is possible. We have become a test case. Vosk paced to his window, looking out over the capital city of the Kryn homeworld. Below, life continued normally, citizens unaware of the pressure building in the shadows. Double security on all hunt-related personnel. Suspend the next 3 scheduled hunts until we can guarantee participant safety. And find out who is coordinating this. I want names. But names were exactly what the humans were determined to keep hidden. Captain Elena Reeves worked from her asteroid monitoring station, coordinating intelligence that supported Marcus's operation without leaving fingerprints. She identified security vulnerabilities, tracked movement patterns, and fed information to mercenary crews through anonymous channels. Captain, we have confirmation, Lieutenant Park said. The Crimson Lance successfully extracted Hunt Master Dorian Kess from his compound on Threx 4. They are en route to deliver him to the designated handoff point. Elena allowed herself a small smile. And the evidence package? Complete. Financial records, communication logs, even video documentation of him planning Hunt logistics. When this goes public, the Kryn will not be able to dismiss it as propaganda. Good. Make sure it gets to every major news network simultaneously. I want this everywhere before they can coordinate a cover-up. On the refugee moon of Tarik 9, Sarah had noticed changes in the camp. Guards seemed nervous, talking in clusters with urgent voices. Fewer transports were arriving to take people away. Something had shifted, though she did not know what. Her answer came in the middle of the night, when explosions lit up the perimeter of the camp. Sarah grabbed Miko and pulled him to the floor as alarms blared and weapons fire echoed outside. Through the gaps in their shelter's walls, she saw figures in combat armor moving with military precision, engaging the Kryn guards. "Stay down," she hissed Miko, whose patterns were flashing bright white with terror. The fighting lasted less than 10 minutes. When silence fell, a voice called out in accented but understandable Velothi. "We are here to evacuate refugees. Anyone who wants to leave, gather in the central area now. We have limited time." So hesitated. This could be a trap, another cruelty designed to give false hope before crushing it. But staying meant certain death, eventually. She made her decision. "Come on," she said to Miko, pulling him up. They emerged to find dozens of other Velothi cautiously approaching the central area where 5 human soldiers stood, their armor bearing no national insignia or identifying marks. The lead soldier, a woman with kind eyes visible through her helmet's visor, gestured to transport ships descending from the sky. "We can take 200 on this run. Families with children first. Move quickly and quietly." "Where are you taking us?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Somewhere safe," the soldier replied. "Somewhere the Kryn cannot reach you. We have human colonies that have agreed to provide sanctuary." It is not perfect, but it is life. Sarah felt tears streaming down her face, her pattern cycling through colors of relief and disbelief. She had stopped believing rescue was possible. Why are you doing this? The soldier's expression hardened. Because we saw what they were doing to you, and we decided it stops now. Not everyone, not all at once, but some. We save who we can. The evacuation proceeded with practiced efficiency. Sarah and Miko boarded the second transport, finding themselves surrounded by other Velothi refugees, all wearing the same expression of stunned hope. As the ship lifted off, Sarah looked through a viewport and saw the camp growing smaller below, the fire still burning where the human soldiers had breached the defenses. Will they be okay? Miko asked, pointing to the soldiers who remained behind to cover the evacuation. I think so, Sarah said, though she was not certain. I think they know what they're doing. The human soldier in command, Lieutenant Maria Santos, watched the transports disappear into the upper atmosphere before activating her team's extraction protocol. Blackbird, this is Ground Team Alpha. Package delivered. Requesting immediate pickup. Confirmed Alpha. Came the response. Stealth transport inbound. ETA 4 minutes. Be advised, Kryn reinforcements are scrambling. You are about to have company. Maria smiled grimly. Then they are about to have a very bad day. All units, defensive positions. We just need to hold for 4 minutes. The Kryn response force arrived to find the camp in chaos, their guards unconscious or dead, and refugees gone. They also found themselves facing soldiers who fought with precision and coordination that spoke of elite training. By the time the human stealth transport arrived to extract the team, the Kryn had suffered significant casualties without capturing or killing a single human operator. The rescue at Tark 9 was only one of 17 simultaneous operations that night. Across Kryn space, human teams struck refugee camps and holding facilities, extracting thousands of Velothi and other vulnerable species. Each operation was coordinated to maximize impact while minimizing the risk of capture. The message was clear. The refugees were no longer defenseless. High Commissioner Vosk received the reports with mounting fury. They are operating inside our territory. This is an act of war. Is it? Asked Cedrus, who had been summoned to the emergency council session. They wear no national insignia. They claim no government affiliation. How do we prove it is officially sanctioned? We know it is the humans. Vosk snapped. Knowing and proving are different things, Cedrus replied. And even if we could prove it, what then? Do we go to war with humanity? They have more ships, more soldiers, and now apparently more popular support than we do. The bounties have turned public opinion across the galaxy. We are becoming isolated. Vosk slammed his fist on the table. Then we make an example. We demonstrate that actions have consequences. Prepare a strike on one of their refugee sanctuary colonies. Show them that protecting these creatures comes at a price. That would be genuinely catastrophic, Cedrus said quietly. Right now, they operate in shadows. If we attack a civilian target, we give them justification for open warfare, and we will lose. The room fell silent. Vosk understood the mathematics, even if he hated them. The Kryn's sovereignty had built its power on economic leverage and regional dominance, not military supremacy. In a direct conflict with humanity and its allies, they would be overwhelmed. Then what do you suggest? Vosk asked, his voice cold. End the hunts, Cedrus said. Revoke the population control directive. Grant the refugees protected status under our law. It is the only way to remove the justification for these actions against us. That would be admitting weakness. That would be admitting reality, Cedrus countered. We tried to make cruelty legal, and the galaxy responded by making hunting us profitable. We have lost this conflict, Commissioner. The only question is how much more damage we sustain before we acknowledge it. Aboard the ISS Meridian 5, Admiral Hutchinson reviewed the operational reports with satisfaction. 17 successful extractions. 3 high-value targets captured with evidence packages. Bounty total now exceeding 3 billion credits with contributions from 47 different species. I would say Operation Reckoning is exceeding expectations. The Kryn are requesting a diplomatic meeting, his aide reported. They want to negotiate. Let them wait, Hutchinson said. A few more days of uncertainty will make them more reasonable. In the meantime, authorize Phase 3. Start hitting their financial infrastructure. Show them that we can make their economy bleed just as easily as we can make their hunters disappear. Marcus received the authorization and smiled. The shadow market was about to get very interesting for Kryn financial institutions. He began drafting new contracts targeting the banks and investment firms that funded the hunt infrastructure. Nothing illegal by shadow market standards, just creative interpretations of existing services like aggressive auditing and preemptive asset freezing. On a human colony world called Haven's Gate, Sarah stood on a balcony overlooking a settlement being constructed specifically for Velothi refugees. The architecture was adapted to their needs, with water features and bioluminescent plants that reminded them of home. Miko was already playing with other children in the courtyard below, his patterns bright and cheerful for the first time in years. A human woman approached, introducing herself as Dr. Lisa Park, the colony's refugee coordinator. "How are you adjusting?" she asked. "I still cannot believe this is real," Sarah admitted. "All my life, I have been told that powerful species do whatever they want to weaker ones. That might makes right. That nobody cares what happens to people like us." "Some people do care," Dr. Park said gently. "Not everyone, not even most perhaps, but enough. And sometimes, enough is all it takes to change everything. Why did your people help us?" Sarah asked, "What do you gain from this?" Dr. Park considered the question. "Maybe we remember being vulnerable once. Maybe we decided that if we have power, we should use it to protect rather than exploit. Or maybe we are just stubborn enough to believe that the galaxy should be better than it is, and we are willing to fight to make it so." She paused. "Also, hunting children offended us deeply. We can be quite aggressive when we are offended." Sarah laughed, a sound she had not made in months. "I am grateful for your aggression." Back in Kryn space, High Commissioner Vosk sat in his darkened office, reviewing the numbers. The hunts had been suspended. 3 members of his inner circle were missing, presumably captured. The sovereignty's banks were reporting coordinated attacks on their systems. Trade partners were quietly distancing themselves, and the bounties kept growing. He had spent his career believing that power was simply the ability to enforce your will without consequence. The humans had taught him that consequences could come from unexpected directions, that law was not the same as morality, and that sometimes the entire galaxy decided to enforce its own sense of justice. His comm chimed. It was Cedrus. "Commissioner, the Galactic Council has agreed to hear a formal complaint against the Population Control Directive. Several species are co-sponsoring a resolution demanding its immediate revocation." "Let me guess," Vosk said tiredly. "Humanity is leading the effort." "Actually, no," Cedrus replied. "The Velothi themselves are presenting the case. The humans are merely providing security and transportation. They are letting the victims speak for themselves." Vosk closed his eyes. Somehow that was worse. The humans could have used this as an opportunity for moral grandstanding, to position themselves as saviors. Instead, they were centering the voices of those who had been harmed, treating them as equals rather than objects to be rescued. "Schedule a meeting with human diplomatic representatives," Vosk said finally. "It is time to negotiate terms." "Terms for what?" Cedrus asked. "Surrender," Vosk said quietly. "We lost this war before we even realized we were fighting it." In her asteroid monitoring station, Captain Elena Reeves received word of the diplomatic overture. She immediately contacted Marcus and Admiral Hutchinson. "They are ready to deal. What are our demands?" "Complete revocation of the Population Control Directive," Marcus said. "Reparations to all affected refugees. Prosecution of hunt organizers under Galactic Council oversight, and permanent protected status for any refugee population within Kryn space." "They will never agree to all of that," Hutchinson said. "Then we keep the bounties active until they do," Elena replied. "We have momentum now. The galaxy is watching. If we settle for half measures, we tell every other species that hunting refugees is acceptable as long as you are willing to apologize afterward." The negotiation took 3 weeks. The Kryn tried to negotiate reduced terms. The humans responded by increasing bounties and conducting more rescue operations. The Kryn threatened military action. The humans quietly positioned warships along the border and dared them to follow through. The Kryn appealed to the Galactic Council for protection. The Council, reading the political winds, declined to intervene. Finally, High Commissioner Vosk signed the agreement. The population control directive was revoked. The hunts were permanently banned. Refugees were granted protected status under sovereignty law. Reparations would be paid from seized assets of hunt organizers. And Vosk himself would step down from his position, accepting responsibility for the policies enacted under his authority. The humans could claim total victory, could have demanded occupation or regime change. Instead, they took their win and stepped back, allowing the Kryn to rebuild their government without outside interference. The message was clear. They had not sought to destroy the Kryn sovereignty, only to stop the hunts. On Haven's Gate, Sarah watched the news broadcast announcing the agreement. She felt Miko lean against her side, his patterns cycling through peaceful blues and greens. Around them, other Velothi refugees celebrated, their relief and joy visible in the brilliant displays of light dancing across their skin. "Is it really over?" Miko asked. "For us, yes," Sarah said. "But there will be others, other species, other threats, other powerful groups who think they can hunt the vulnerable without consequence. And the humans will stop them too?" Miko asked hopefully. Sarah smiled. "Maybe. Or maybe we will stop them ourselves. Maybe we have learned that even the weak can fight back if they are clever enough, brave enough, and willing to make the cost of cruelty higher than anyone wants to pay." She thought about the humans who had risked their lives to save people they had never met, who had turned their wealth and power toward justice rather than exploitation. She thought about the mercenaries who had chosen principle over easier profits. She thought about the thousands of ordinary citizens from dozens of species who had contributed to the bounties, turning moral outrage into financial pressure. The galaxy was not perfect. Power still mattered, and strength still counted. But the humans had demonstrated something important. That power could be challenged, that cruelty could be made unprofitable, and that sometimes the price of hunting children was higher than anyone could afford to pay. In the depths of space, on hidden stations and covert channels, Operation Reckoning quietly stood down. The bounties were transferred to a permanent monitoring fund, ready to be reactivated if the Kryn or any other species attempted similar policies. The rescue networks remained operational, adapted to serve other refugee populations across the galaxy. Marcus Chin looked at the final operational report and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They had not saved everyone. They had not eliminated all cruelty from the galaxy. But they had proven that intervention was possible, that coordination could overcome power, and that sometimes putting a price on hunters was exactly the right response. Captain Elena Reeves transmitted her final intelligence summary to Admiral Hutchinson. Operation complete. Directive revoked. Refugees safe. Recommend maintaining alert status for any similar legislation from other sovereignties. We have established a template for response. Others will test whether we are willing to repeat it. Hutchinson's reply was brief. Understood. Well done. Let them test us. We will be ready. And across the galaxy, in government chambers and criminal networks, in military headquarters and refugee camps, the message had been received. Humanity had drawn a line. They had declared that some actions, legal or not, would not be tolerated. They had proven they possessed the capability and will to enforce that declaration. The hunt had ended. The hunters had learned to fear. And the galaxy would never forget what happened when someone made the mistake of legalizing cruelty. The Velothi refugees had been saved not by law or treaties, but by beings who decided that justice mattered more than politics. The humans had paid for that justice with resources and risk. The mercenaries had claimed it with skill and courage. Together, they had transformed helpless victims into survivors, hunters into fugitives, and legal atrocity into costly mistake. In the end, they had not just saved the Velothi. They had sent a message that would echo across countless worlds. Hunt the helpless, and humans will hunt you. Make cruelty legal, and they will make stopping you profitable. test their resolve, and discover that some species, when confronted with absolute wrong, will respond with absolute determination. The story would be told for generations. The precedent was set. The price was clear. And the galaxy was a slightly better place because someone had been willing to pay it.